Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second week of second grade. Today is Tuesday, September 15th, and we are getting ready to start our new week of read alouds. So you will have two different read alouds this week, and this time I'll be asking some questions to go along with the read alouds, and then you guys are going to have two different writing activities to do with the read alouds. So before we get started, I wanted to remind you guys of what we learned last week with our 5W retell. So remember, our 5W retell helps us to know what we're reading and to understand and remember what we've read. So our 5Ws help us to retell a story. So our first W is who. And when we talk about who, we talk about the characters in the story. Who is in the story? Our second W is what. What is happening? That's also a word that we're going to use for plot. What is happening in the story? What happens in the beginning? What happens in the middle? And what happens at the end? Our third W is where. Where does the story take place? This also goes along with the setting of the story. Our next W is when. When does the story take place? And our last W is why. Why did the characters act that way? Why was there a problem? Okay, so remember as I read to be thinking about the 5Ws and see if you can answer those 5Ws as I read. Okay, so today's story is one of my favorite stories, and it is called A Weekend with Wendell. So our author is Kevin Henkes. Okay, so our author is the one that writes the story, and our illustrator, interestingly enough, is also Kevin Henkes. So he is the author, the one who wrote the words, and the illustrator, the one who drew the pictures. So our story today is going to be about friendship. And friendship is very important, especially right now because you're in a new class. So you're meeting all new friends. And so this story is going to kind of give you a little tip and some hints on how to make new friends and on how to treat those friends. So we're going to read the story today. And on a couple of the different pages, there's going to be a little note. And that note is for me. And that note means that I'm going to ask you a question. And I want you to pause the video on those pages so you can take some think time to think about those questions. And then at the very end, I'm going to give you an activity to do tomorrow for Wednesday's writing activity. Okay, so as I read, I want you to be thinking about the 5Ws, see if you can answer those, and remember to pause the video when you see a little note on the page and take some think time. Okay, so A Weekend with Wendell. On Friday afternoon, Wendell's parents dropped him off at Sophie's house. "Wendell's going to spend the weekend with us," said Sophie's mother, "while his parents visit relatives out of town." "Oh boy," said Wendell. Sophie didn't say anything. So here we see I have a little note. It says, "Are you wondering why Sophie doesn't say anything?" What do you think? Wendell's very excited, but Sophie doesn't say anything. Take a look at Sophie. After a snack, Sophie helped Wendell carry his sleeping bag and suitcase upstairs. "Well, what are we going to do now?" asked Wendell. "Do you have any toys?" Sophie pointed to her toy chest. "Is that all you've got?" said Wendell. "I've got 1,000,000 times more than that. What else is there to do around here?" We could play house," said Sophie. "Only if I can make the rules," said Wendell. So again, we have Sophie and we have Wendell. So they played house and Wendell made the rules. He was the father, the mother, and the 5 children. Sophie was the dog. Then they played hospital. Wendell was the doctor, the nurse, and the patient. Sophie was the desk clerk. So again, we have a question. So you're going to pause the video and take some think time. What do you think about these rules that Wendell is making? Remember, our story is about friendship. I wonder if Wendell's being a good friend to Sophie right now. Look at Sophie's reaction. What do you think about these rules that Wendell's making? When they pretended they worked in a bakery, Wendell was the baker and Sophie was a sweet roll. "Isn't this fun?" said Wendell. Sophie didn't say anything. At dinner, Wendell said that he was allergic to anything green, so he didn't have to eat his vegetables. And then, when Sophie wasn't looking, he scooped the whipped cream off her dessert. "When is Wendell leaving?" whispered Sophie. "Soon," said her mother. "Soon," said her father. Got another question here. Can you guess why Sophie is asking when Wendell will leave? Take some think time. Why do you think Sophie is saying, "When is he leaving?" After Sophie's parents tucked Sophie in her bed, zipped Wendell in his sleeping bag, kissed them both, and turned off the light, Wendell grabbed his flashlight and shone it right in Sophie's eyes. "See you tomorrow," he said, smiling. Sophie shut her eyes. "I can't wait for Wendell to go home," she said to herself. On Saturday morning, when Sophie woke up, there was a lumpy blue monster jumping up and down on her bed. It was Wendell. She felt something pinch her leg at breakfast. It was Wendell. She heard scary noises coming from the broom closet. It was Wendell. Wendell used Sophie's crayons and left them on the porch so they melted. At lunch, Wendell finger painted with his peanut butter and jelly. "Isn't this fun?" said Wendell. Sophie didn't say anything. "When is Wendell leaving?" whispered Sophie. "Soon," said her mother. "Soon," said her father. At bedtime, when Sophie put her head on her pillow, she heard something crunch. It was a note from Wendell. It said, "See you tomorrow." Sophie shut her eyes. "I can't wait for Wendell to go home," she said to herself. Let's look at this note. We've got Wendell. He's ha ha ha. He's laughing. And you've got Sophie, and she looks like she is scared, and she's running away. He says, "See you tomorrow." Before Wendell's parents picked him up on Sunday morning, he tried to make a long-distance call. And it says, "Is this the North Pole?" He wrote his name on the bathroom mirror with toothpaste. And he gave Sophie a new hairdo with shaving cream. "Want to go outside to help me wash this off?" asked Sophie. "We could play firefighter." "Oh boy," said Wendell. So they played firefighter, and Sophie made the rules. She was the fire chief. Wendell was the burning building. "Isn't this fun?" said Sophie. Wendell didn't say anything. "Do I get to be the fire chief?" asked Wendell. "Maybe," said Sophie. So I want you to pause it right here, and I want you to think, has something changed? It seems like Sophie is now a little bit happier, and Wendell's not so happy. I wonder why they've changed. What do you think? Soon, Wendell and Sophie didn't care who was the fire chief or who was the burning building. So here we have another question. What's happening now? And why does Wendell change? Let's look at the pictures. What's happening? Things are looking a little different now. I wonder why. "Time to go," said Sophie's mother. "Time to go," said Sophie's father. "Already?" said Wendell. "Already?" said Sophie. "When is Wendell coming back?" asked Sophie. "Never," said her mother. Never, said her father. That afternoon, when Wendell unpacked his suitcase, he heard something crunch. It was a note from Sophie. It said, "I hope I see you soon." All right, and our last question, what happens to make Sophie want Wendell to come back? Let's see. What happens? Because at the beginning of the story, if we think about the what happened? If we think about the beginning of the story, Sophie said, "When is he leaving?" But now at the end of the story, she says, "When is he coming back?" So I want you to take some time and think, what changed? Why do you think Sophie changed her mind? And how did Wendell change? If you look, this is the letter from Sophie. So it says, "I hope I see you soon, Sophie." And that's what Wendell found in his backpack. And that is the end of our story for today, A Weekend with Wendell. So I want you to remember, as you're thinking about this story, take some time to think back at who was in the story, what happened in the story. So ask yourself, what happened in the beginning? What happened in the middle? And what happened at the end? And then you're going to ask yourself, well, where were they? Where did the story take place? And when did the story take place? And the last question you're going to ask yourself is why? Why was there a problem? Why did Wendell change? Why did Sophie change? Okay, so as you're listening, be thinking about that 5W. And now I'm going to give you your activity. Now, this story was for Tuesday, but your activity is going to be Wednesday. You're going to find something in your folder that looks like this. It has Wednesday at the top, okay? And it's got lines down here for you to write and then a blank box for you to draw a picture. So your job now is to think about the story A Weekend with Wendell, and you can go back and listen if you need to. Would you want Wendell to come play at your house? Why or why not? So your job now is to answer that question. I want you to think about how Wendell acted in the story and think about how he was as a friend, how he acted as a friend. Now pretend like Wendell asks to come to your house. Would you want him to come play at your house? I want you to tell me on these lines, yes, I would like Wendell to come play at my house, or no, I would not like Wendell to come play at my house. And then you have to tell me why. Okay, so don't forget, you're either going to say, yes, I want Wendell to come play at my house, or no, I don't want Wendell to come play at my house. And you have to say, because blank. You're going to write that on the lines, and then you can draw a picture of you and Wendell, or of you and someone else if you don't want Wendell to come to your house, or maybe a picture of why you don't want Wendell to come play at your house. Okay, so the story is for Tuesday, but you can go back on Wednesday when you have to do this writing activity and listen to the story again and be thinking about those 5 W's. Okay, and I will see you guys again tomorrow for our next story.